So I talk about the MCU a lot on this stream, and whenever I do, or at least many times in the past when I have, I've mentioned this background irritation that I have with the MCU, and I would like to elaborate on that. Spoiler alert, it's the blip. The blip didn't have to happen. Whenever the blip comes up, it kind of irritates me and I roll my eyes a little. So for those of you who are wondering, there's your answer. I will spend a bit of time talking about why that matters to me. And in order to do that, we're gonna, tell some stories about my past with comics in general. Before I do that, though, I just want to put forth some caveats here. So the first thing that I want to mention is that I know there are people who who have fun hunting for Easter eggs, like people who break down every pixel of every frame of every Marvel movie. To those people, you're probably going to know things that I did not know. However, I don't think this invalidates my overall point. One thing is for sure, Marvel writers are clearly having fun putting Easter eggs for you. So, have fun. It doesn't hurt anyone. A blatant example would be the Thanos copter at the end of Loki. Like, that was so glaring, even I noticed it. And I don't particularly spend time hunting for Easter eggs, but I just wanted to point out it is quite possible that I will overlook something that y'all have noticed, and feel free to let me know in the comments below. But yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that. Another thing is, I know that the modern term is to call them Infinity Stones. However, back in my day, they were called Infinity Gems, or So even though, yes, a gem is a precious stone, I just wanted to point out that if I call them Infinity Gems, I'm not going to correct myself. I've gotten used to calling them stones more, but hey, old habits die hard. The last caveat that I want to mention is, no matter what I end up saying, I just want to point out the Marvel movies are great. I love them. I really enjoyed Endgame and Infinity War. I fucking love those movies. I watched them again as a just to make sure that I was up to speed, because the last time I saw these movies was in theaters. So I'm really glad that I got to refresh my memory, and they're really good movies. Okay, that's not the point of what irritates me. Okay, now let's talk a little about the Infinity Saga, or the Infinity Gauntlet story as it exists to me. So I read the Infinity Saga back in the late 90s or early 2000s. I have them here, actually. I broke out my comic book collection here. I read Infinity Gauntlet, 6-part miniseries. I read Infinity War, which is the closer follow-up to that. And I also read Infinity Crusade, which I actually enjoyed. Infinity Crusade. I would later learn that most people didn't, and the general consensus is that Infinity Crusade isn't that good, but I enjoyed it. Okay. And the reason this is important is because, and I didn't realize this before preparing for this segment, Infinity Gauntlet was probably the first crossover event I ever read, and it is one of the few stories that I've read multiple times. I really enjoyed it, like I said, and that story probably kicked off my my love of epic crossover events where, like, existence itself is threatened by a incredibly powerful force that a bunch of superheroes are have to like team up together to face. And over the years, actually, I went on to really have fun reading the DC crises, like Crisis on Infinite Earths, Infinite Crisis, and Final Crisis. This will be a little relevant later on. So the Infinity Gauntlet story has a special place in my history with comics. So before moving on, I want to talk about movie adaptations of comics. Okay, so back in the day when I was more of a purist, whenever a comic would be adapted in movie form, any little change would bug the shit out of me. And it took a while for me to get over that. By the time Marvel, the MCU Phase 1 began, I had pretty much gotten accustomed to that. But just as an example, when Sam Raimi, actually, just as an illustration, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, I remember when I watched that, being really annoyed by the fact that that Peter Parker could actually produce webbing from his biological body. And I remember my friends saying, well, it makes more sense that way. And I countered them by saying, you're removing a plot device from you. You know, the trick of Spider-Man running out of webbing, or having to adapt his webbing, like with a special formula to defeat a certain enemy. If he's producing it with his body, you can't really do that. And I am filing that under Sydney was right, because in Spider-Man 2, what they did was, ooh, I feel bad. Peter can't shoot his webs because Peter's sad. Peter can't shoot. And that kind of sucked, you know? Whereas had he had a device, it could have been a better way to deal with plot twists that way. So moving on, again, I loved comic books, and as I got used to seeing them be adapted, I would get used to this. Now, when Iron Man came out, I was psyched. I saw it in theaters. Actually, let us go to this graphic here. Marvel Phase 1 here. I saw Iron Man. I actually saw this Hulk. The only reason why I enjoyed this Hulk movie is because the only other Hulk movie that I had seen was the Ang Lee one, where the Hulk was barely in it. So compared to that piece of trash, the Hulk with Edward Norton was actually pretty good. Although, as far as MCU movies go, it wasn't that hot. I just want to give you an idea of where I was at going into the Infinity War movie. So one thing is for sure, by Iron Man 2, it was clear that they were going to start doing an Avengers movie. So movies that only existed to set up a character so that the movie audience could get accustomed to them. I wasn't particularly interested in that movie unless I really liked that character. And I have nothing against Thor, but I never particularly cared about him. So I skipped the Thor movie. I love Captain America, so I saw that. And then at some point during the Avengers and Iron Man movies, they started teasing that they were going to do the Infinity Gauntlet. And I was psyched, right? But again, keeping with the same logic, if it's a movie that only exists to introduce a character to a new audience, and it's not a character that I particularly love, I wasn't really going to see it. So I didn't see any Thor movie. The only movies that I saw going into Infinity War were the Iron Man movies, the Captain America movies, the Avengers movies, and that was about it. Obviously, the Spider-Man movies. Before we continue, I just want to give a caveat. I forgot to even address this over here. I I don't care about Ant-Man. I don't think I can care about Ant-Man. The only reason that I'm mentioning this is because I know that there's some MCU fans who really like him. I'm really happy for Paul Rudd, that's for sure. I don't have any ill will towards Ant-Man, but it is impossible for me to care about this character. So you can have like as many Ant-Man movies as you want. I'm not going to see this. I'm familiar enough with, yes, gets big, gets small. I got it. So when Ant-Man was in Civil War here, I didn't mind. I'm familiar with the superpower of growing big and shrinking small. So it was interesting, And strangely enough, no pun intended, I actually like Doctor Strange, but it was so obvious to me that this was just to set up an Infinity War that I skipped this movie. Now, the joke would kind of be on me because I would later on see these movies a lot later, but I never saw Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor Ragnarok. I did see Black Panther because he's hella based. I fucking love T'Challa. So I would say that coming into Infinity War, I would say that this was the correct play because I was only like 10% confused. Obviously, not having seen Ragnarok, I had no idea why all those Asgardians were on a ship in the middle of space. However, I knew almost everyone, so it wasn't that important to me. I will come back to that. After talking about the comics, I want to talk about the comics first, because the thing to know about the Infinity Gems, they are way more powerful in the comics than they are in the MCU. Like, as powerful as they are, they're like an empty shell of what they are in the comics. And I will substantiate that claim in a moment. One thing that I want to stress is that at the beginning of Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos has all 6 stones right away. And the infamous snap that happens at the end of Infinity War, it happened at the end of issue number 1 of Infinity Gauntlet. So the other 5 issues of this 6-part miniseries was the surviving 50% of heroes gathering to face the threat that is Thanos, who is now omnipotent, And just as an aside, at some point while I was watching the Infinity War movie, I realized, like, hey, this isn't Infinity Gauntlet. This is Thanos' quest. This is the story of Thanos acquiring the Infinity Stones. And when I got that comprehension in that movie theater, I started rooting for Thanos because I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get to the snap because I know what's happening. Characters throughout the movie had been teasing it, let's get to it. So it was really interesting watching people react to the snap. I had a very different reaction. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. Wait. The difference in reaction between me and the people that I had seen Infinity War with was so different that when I got home that night, I made this GIF here. I don't know why it's not auto looping, but basically, these 2 ladies didn't read the comics and I did, and I was grinning ear to ear. That kind of illustrates it. Coming back to how the Infinity Stones work, let's take the space gem as an example, okay? So an Infinity Gem doesn't necessarily, it gives you control over that aspect of existence. So taking the space stone as an example, it's not just a teleporter. It gives you control over space. So you can do fancier tricks like being omnipresent or, contracting space-time to bring something closer to you and that kind of thing. And I found it interesting that at the beginning of the Infinity War movie, there was kind of a hint at how the stones do work like that, because Loki tries to stab Thanos, and Thanos like stops it with the glove. But all he had at that time were the power glove and the space, the power gem and the space gem. So that the fact that he could stop, that he could stop Loki's attempt to stab him with the gauntlet as it was, it kind of hints at the fact that the stones in the MCU kind of work that way as well. And that will be relevant later. The other thing to keep in mind is that in the comics, merely possessing a gem was enough. You didn't need like a special thing to make it work. You just needed to have it. When I rewatched Infinity War and Endgame, I realized that there was a key line that I missed that kind of explained why they kind of made it explicit that the gems don't work that way in the MCU. And it's when that dwarf character played by Tyrion Lannister, who said, Thanos asked me to make a device capable of harnessing the power of the stones. And that in itself negates the rule as it existed in my head, which was that merely possessing a stone gave you dominion over that aspect of existence, right? So in Endgame, when towards the end, when they were kind of playing football with the gauntlet, in my mind, I was like, holy shit, this person is omnipotent. You know, when Hawkeye had the gauntlet at first, and then evil Nebula had it, then Hawkeye again, then T'Challa, then Spider-Man, then Captain Marvel just before the girl power sequence. In my mind, I was like, holy shit, why aren't they like doing it, you know? Another thing that would have been completely different, which in my mind would have ended the movie right there, when Bruce Banner brings everyone back by snapping the glove. In my mind, as soon as he put the gauntlet on, Bruce has the Mind Stone and the Time Stone. So with that in mind, the way the stones work in my mind, just by putting the glove on, he should have known that Nebula was an imposter and that Thanos was on his way. But again, they made it explicit in that one line in Infinity War that it was just my misunderstanding. But that being said, in the MCU, I don't know how... Here's how to illustrate how much weaker these stones are in the MCU. Not only do you need a device to make them work, but you need to feed your life force to make them work too. So it's like, picture Aladdin's lamp, where the genie can grant you any of 3 wishes. However, every wish ages you 30 years. I would consider that, you know, if you compare the Infinity Gems, where merely having all 6 of them makes you omnipotent, like the gauntlet in the comics is just a convenient way of carrying them around and making them harder to take from you, you know? And in the movies, the gauntlet is what makes it work, and you need an extremely tough person to like feed their life force as the fuel, you know? Fucking Hulk had his arm in a sling for God knows how long after bringing everyone back. This is not what I would consider as powerful as in the comics, so to speak. While I'm on the topic, I just want to mention how, and this to me holds even given the rules in the MCU. I'm pretty sure that Thanos was kind of toying with everyone. Like, I remember when in Infinity War, the movie, when Thanos was fighting everyone on Titan, and you know, he crumbled that moon and threw it at Tony Stark and whatever. I was pretty sure that, you know, he had the space gem, the power gem, the reality gem. Like, that's enough for him to like just completely, like, you could bubbles everyone. like he did at Nowhere, you know. The fight on Titan was a little clearer to me because he needed information from Gamora, right? So that explains why he might not have gone that hardcore, which I realized after the fact by watching the movie. However, once he arrives in Wakanda, and the only thing he has left is the Time Stone, which to me, having complete dominion over every aspect of reality except the mind, there's no reason why the Wakanda fight would have lasted that long unless Thanos was toying with everyone. And even on Titan, like, I understand that. Wait, let me let me fetch an image here. I forget if he had the soul gem on Titan or not, but the one thing is for sure, I understand that Doctor Strange had locked the Time Stone away with a simple spell that is quite unbreakable. However, one wonders how well a simple spell would fare against the Reality Stone. Not only the Reality Stone, but also with the Power Stone. Like the Power Stone serves as this like nitrous oxide, which makes all the other gems more powerful, you know. So it's difficult for me to conceive of that. But one thing is for sure, the fight on Wakanda never should have lasted that long. Before I move on, I just want to mention some things that happened in the comics which I wish would have happened in the movies. Let me just. I wish that this would have happened, or at least some kind of nod to this. But in the comics, at some point, Thanos turns Thor to glass, and then the next page he shatters him. I really would have loved to see something like that in the movie. You know, like. There's the notion of turning people to bubbles. I remember at some point he sliced and diced Drax into cubes, but weirdly, for some reason, as soon as he left, Drax and that other chick with the antenna, they reassembled themselves. It's yet another example of how much weaker these stones are in the movies. They couldn't have done this in the movie because there's so many characters here which are unknown to the MCU, which you would have had to introduce. But just to give you an idea of the scope of the power that we're dealing with, later in Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos is wiping the floor with all the superheroes that are left. And at some point, we had a bunch of cosmic entities which are ganging up on Thanos all at the same time. We have Galactus here, and all these cosmic beams. How many of them are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, including Mephisto here. And they ganged up on him at the same time, and he just didn't actually snap, but just immediately just conquered them all at once, and kept them as fucking trophies behind his monument to himself. You know, if Galactus and 8 other Galactus level beings are ganging up on you and you just shrug them off like that, this is ridiculous. I don't know how artifacts that you need to spend your life force to make them work would fare against Galactus, because maybe the power that you have to give the stones to shrug off such a monumental assault might kill you too, you know. In Endgame, when he used the stones to destroy the stones, he said that almost killed him. You know, how much damage would that have done to have had to deal with this kind of assault, you know? We will never know. And on the subject of Thanos, this isn't really that big of a deal. However, again, it's one of those things that you can't help but notice when you're familiar with the original content. they changed Thanos' key motivation. So in the comics, Thanos is a nihilist. Like the motivation behind Thanos snapping and killing half of all life in existence was to impress death. So in the comics, death is usually embodied like this is an age-old thing, the Grim Reaper with the hood and the scythe and everything. But in the comics, death is a woman. And like this whole quest to obtain the Infinity Gems and snap half of our life out of existence was to impress a woman. That was like, to impress a woman was the surface motivation, but the deeper motivation behind that, because this isn't just any woman, this is death, right? Is the nihilism. And to change his key motivation from nihilism to this perverted altruism where like, hey, I'm actually helping you out, bro, by killing half of you, the half that are left will thrive. It was, I get why they did it, and ultimately I think it was the good move. However, it's not the kind of thing that you can that's easy to gloss over. An example that I thought of is, imagine Batman. Okay, we have Batman. He has the same powers and abilities. His parents still got shot in that alleyway. However, he is deeply, deeply happy. It is, you can have Bruce Wayne doing all the Batman stuff, but like having him like arrive home and like take his boots off with a smile and saying, hey, I protected lives today. And, I love Gotham so much. Well, actually, I think Bruce really does love Gotham. I think. I don't read Batman so much. I guess his relationship is complicated, but you get the idea. To have someone with the same powers and abilities as Batman, but with different different key, like deep down to the core of the character motivations, it took some time to get used to, but I understand why they did it, because it minimizes the amount of characters that you would have to put, so I think it was a good thing. I just wanted to mention that. So let's take it back to the blip. The reason why it bugs me so much is because, and Tony asked for this, like when Bruce had the gauntlet and wanted to snap everyone back, Tony said like, hey, you bring everyone back to today, you don't change anything. However, they hinted at this at the beginning of Infinity War, where the time gem could potentially like give you dominion over the concept of time. So the same concept that had him stop Loki's stab with only the space gem could have been used to basically, you could have brought everyone back to 5 years ago and basically make it so that the snap never happened, and also bring Tony and his family back 5 years as they are now with all the memories and things. Because like, why let so many people live with 5 years of trauma like that when you don't have to, and again, as they hinted at, it could have been possible to do. And the gauntlet could have just worked everything out. So this isn't a deal breaker. This didn't stop me from enjoying the movies. However, the blip is a constant reminder to me of how much weaker the Stones are in the movies as they were in the comics, of this influential story that has a special place in my heart. And whenever I watch MCU content that deals with the consequences of the blip, I kind of roll my eyes internally, like I did during Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which the blip was a major part of this, and how, like, the people who were out of existence for 5 years and got their houses foreclosed on, like, what do we do with all these people? Like, this isn't something that had to happen. So Oh, and obviously the Spider-Man movie. I don't know how the fuck, you know, you're a freshman in high school and then your classmates are now on the verge of graduating when you come back. Again, it didn't have to happen. It bugs me, but I get why they did it. It was a nice way to send Robert Downey Jr. off. Thank you for your service. And if you are still watching, thank you for watching so long. Holy shit. My main goal with this movie, with this segment here, was to have something concrete to point to when I mentioned my complicated relationship with the MCU. So if you're still watching, thank you so much. I would invite you to click on the card right here to watch the next video. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.